All right, back on the conversation. I've got a fun announcement for you guys. We've got a new Justice Democrat, Odessa Kelly from Nashville, Tennessee. So Odessa, first of all, welcome to the program. Great to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to talk to the homies.
Good. I was excited because when you announced, the press covered you as the first major progressive candidate of the 2022 cycle. So I remember when we founded Justice Democrats on this show with this audience, right? And if you told us back in 2017 that just a short 4 years later that the group would have such standing that when they announced someone like you, it would immediately get the press's attention as, whoa, the Democrat in that seat better watch out, right? We would all been pretty psyched. And then to see a candidate like you would be even more psyched. So for the folks who don't know you, like you're not a standard politician. So tell us, how in the world did you get here in running in this situation?
Sure. Fighting for my own life is how I got here. You know, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a Nashville native. First 14 years of my adult working life, I was a city employee. I worked for the city for Metro Parks and Recreation, you know, and it was my job to make people happy. I was literally the part of government that people like to see. You know, I became a young parent at like 25, like a lot of people do. And I was also still trying to figure out how to be an adult at 25. And with me having children and trying to figure out how to take care of them, you know, I started to really look into my job and how can I be a better civil servant? And I liked my job. I liked the fact that my job was to bring joy to other people's lives. And even that meant just, you know, going and beating your son in basketball in the gym, I was up to doing it. You know, but another real thing that happened is that I had to get a master's degree just to get into middle management, and I was still living check to check. You know, I didn't know if I was ever gonna be able to afford a home in my own city where I was born and raised. You know, the community center that I worked in is in one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in Nashville. And in that time, you know, I'm dealing with people, not only kids, but adults and elderly people who are working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to make it check to check. You know, I got tired of going to court for kids who did, you know, made bad decisions, but no one ever asked them the reason why they made bad decisions. And that reason was because they was trying to help their mamas pay rent. You know, and that type of stuff just got on my nerves, and that's what pushed me into activism work. You know, I became an activist because I was fighting for my own life, and I got tired of seeing the school to prison pipeline take kids out of the, you know, out of my neighborhood. I got tired of seeing my communities being over policed. I got tired of seeing people working 2 or 3 jobs and still not being able to make it. And through that, we pushed for a lot of policies. But in this last year of the pandemic, you know, what I realized is that we got problems at the top. We keep missing the mark, you know, and that's because we don't have organizers at the top who are centering people in the middle of how we make decisions. And that's not something that comes by lightly. Like, that's a craft and a skill that you have to like work on. And I'm really good at doing it. I've worked on it for the past 7, 8, 9 years of my life. And I think we need leadership that better reflects who we are as a progressive people who are trying to move the nation forward to where we need it to be to help all people.
Yeah, and so Odessa's running against Democratic incumbent Jim Cooper, who's one of the worst corporate Democrats in the whole House. And trust me that Jim Cooper does not talk about the community in the same way that Odessa does. And he talks about it usually from a right-wing perspective and law and order and all that nonsense. And so in law, there's nothing wrong with law and order, but when they say law and order, they usually mean something else. Odessa, I want to follow up with one thing that you did in the community. And Just Democrats looks for community leaders just like you. I mean, the obvious comparison is Cori Bush, because she was such a big community activist and leader in Missouri. But when they were trying to put up a soccer stadium in Nashville, you made some demands that I thought were super interesting. So tell us about that story. Who was going to put up the soccer stadium, and how did you even get in a position to make demands, and what demands did you make?
Yeah, you know, in 2017, we had 3 things that happened here in the city of Nashville. The city employees, me being one myself, asked for a COLA, which stands for cost of living adjustment. City said, we ain't got it, fam. We ain't got the money. We can't do it. You know, then the superintendent at the time was just asking for enough money to adequately run our school system. City again said, fam, we ain't got the money, we can't do it. Then the third thing that happened is the city announced that they were gonna try to close our public hospital. As an African American from a community where a lot of people don't have health benefits, they use that service. I was like, how are we gonna close our public hospital? They said, we don't have the money to run it. Cenk, you see a pattern that's happening here?
Yeah.
Yet at the end of 2017, they found $275 million to build a soccer stadium. It's like, where are our priorities? They're not in place. So at that time, we learned from our failures in past and trying to get things done. And just learning and holding ourselves accountable. Do we want to do the same thing again, or do we want to actually tangibly get a win? So we learned from our failures, and we went out and we built leverage and relationships with every person that we could in the community. We put out thousands of surveys for 7 to 8 months before we even talked to any elected official about what they wanted to see happen on the soccer stadium. We wanted to make sure that people in Nashville got a chance to sit at the table and be a part of the development instead of it happening to them. So by the time we got to elected officials, we had all of these demands from voting people who wanted to see something happen for the city. And the elected officials got on board. A lot of people that we worked on hiring, getting into these elected offices locally, they wanted to see good things happen too. They just didn't know how to do it as well. Like you said, we are fighting against people who've been putting these systems of oppression in for years upon years upon years. And I'm just sick of it. We all were sick of it. So what we did is we came together, elected officials, activists, organizers, clergy, just regular everyday people to try to get this thing done that would put 200 units of affordable housing back into the urban core of Nashville, where it's just fleeting, where we could get a $15.50 minimum wage on all the jobs that are gonna happen out there, because that's how you really are hitting at the center of the urgency that people need. In the area where they're building a stadium, it's a daycare desert. So one of the things that we made sure that we got is a daycare on a sliding scale to make sure that everyone could afford it. And there are several other things that we got. But I think building leverage and making sure that everyone can hear their voice and see some urgency in it is the thing that we did and made it such a one of the strongest CBAs in the country.
Yeah, so I love that story. Power never concedes without a demand, never has, never will. So obviously Frederick Douglass said that, and you guys demanded, and you got the 20% of all housing to be affordable housing. You got the $15.50 an hour. We could definitely use that in Congress. And so I'm going to use that as a transition in a second, but I want everybody to know your website. So it's odessaforcongress.com. So by definition, just Democrats don't run with corporate PAC money, so they need your help. And you could tell she's fought back. She's won before. She, by the way, got the National Eleanor Roosevelt Legacy Award in 2019. So we'll have the links down below if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else. But odessaforcongress.com. So Odessa, now look, you got that fighting spirit. You're clearly very progressive. Your campaign issues are perfect. $15 minimum wage, Medicare for all, Green New Deal. Check, 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 right? But as we found out, the most important question is, yes, but when you go to Congress, will you actually fight? Because Odessa, every candidate comes on here and tells us they're going to. And then what they don't know is that when they go to Washington, there is overwhelming pressure to not fight. Overwhelming pressure, right? And honestly, they all succumb. So how can we know, Odessa, that you say $15 minimum wage, but right now they've all given up on $15 minimum wage? How do we know you won't?
I'm not there yet, but I can ask people to do the same thing I did here locally. And the reason why I built my reputation and so many people nominated me to run, is because hold me accountable. I'm sick and tired of it, Cenk. You talking to the choir here. Like I said, I was someone who got into activism because I was fighting for my own life, and fighting for the people who have the exact same urgencies. And I hear you. One of the things that I've heard across the nation is that the same problems that we're having here in Nashville, the same problems that are happening in LA, the Bay Area, Detroit, Chicago, Albuquerque, New Mexico, to even some of the rural places, so we got the same issues and I'm here to fight for them. I think we need more organizers in office who know how to actually move people to where we want to be. I keep looking at this situation and I find it interesting. To all the people out there, if you're listening, please go organize in Joe Manchin's district. Put some pressure on him from the bottom up, because the problem is he too comfortable. A lot of them are, and we have to change it from that level so that we can have, more leverage at the top to make those type of decisions. But I'm definitely gonna fight for it. Hold me accountable, Dad.
Trust me, we will. So, Odessa, one last thing.
Sure.
Look, I think it's relatively easy to fight Joe Manchin, although apparently it's not because very few people do it. But it gets much harder when you have a progressive leader tell you stand down, right? And Odessa, you're new to this and you don't know, and we have a strategy that we're not going to tell you, but we have a strategy that we're going to get at later, and you're going to hurt the movement if you fight now. What do you say to that?
That's not what I'm running for, like, hopefully I have all of you on our team as well, just like in the way that we've built power so far, and we have to keep building that power, I'm not running this race to be palatable, I'm running this race to be authentic and true to the people who need to have their voices heard in leadership, and I'm hoping that's what resonates with people and why so many people have been excited about my campaign so far. In the same way that I ran a community center, in the same way that we have organized, it was that we've tried to speak truth to power and just let the chips fall where they may. And so far it's worked out well for us. The last thing that we want to do is copy voices of oppression that have been pushing back against us. I think that one of the most important things about the race that I want to run is that far too long, especially as a Black woman, as a gay woman, as a woman, we've had to form our votes out of mitigating the harm that happens to our bodies and to our communities. And I'm tired of that. That's the reason why I'm running. I want to run. Our leadership should be able to inspire hope and tell us what we can do and create visions of what can be possible if we think about it and do it together. Not mansplain to me why we can't do something, which is what I think I hear you saying. And I definitely want to be one of the individuals that kowtow to that, so I'm not running to adhere to other people who are in leadership. I'm running for the people out here who need help. I think it was I forgot who it was that said the people closest to the pain should be closest to the leadership or closest to the power. And I 100% believe that, and that's exactly the way that I plan on advocating and pushing for anything that we doing at the congressional level.
All right, love it. And just so people at home understand as they're typing in OdessaForCongress.com right now or clicking below, that look, she co-founded a group called Stand Up Nashville. Stand up's in the name. Okay, and she did walk the walk. She did stand up to power in Nashville, and she did win. So the proof's in the pudding there. So Odessa, it's great to have you as a Just Democrat and as a candidate. Again, also the opponent is one of the worst corporate Democrats in the House. So yeah, and next time we'll talk about him, so people get a sense of the urgency of this race.
Next time, so you invite me back.
Of course.
I want a T-shirt too, and let me have one in the XL because I'm a big girl.
Well, trust me, I'm a big guy, so I know how that feels. So, all right, great, and hopefully one day we'll have you in the studio too. Everybody, go to OdessaForCongress.com. Odessa, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.